David Hellman, who writes for DallasCowboys.com. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like a Dallas-Denver Super Bowl? Would you be happy with that, David?
I think, well, from my standpoint, I mean, it would be a dream to cover a Super Bowl. I think there's plenty of Cowboys fans who would probably love to relive that experience for sure.
David, do you believe the Dallas Cowboys are Super Bowl worthy this year?
I think they're probably on the short list of teams that, you know, if somebody were to call the Cowboys Super Bowl contenders, I don't think that's preposterous. I think it's defensible at least. I think they've got enough questions that I'm not thinking that they're the favorite. I mean, Green Bay and Seattle are the teams to beat in the NFC as far as I'm concerned, and I think everybody else is at least a notch or two below that. But after those two favorites, I think you'd probably put the Cowboys in that category. That I think it's a reasonable thought that they could pull it off, but obviously plenty of things to figure out.
Boy, that was a very objective answer for a guy who writes for DallasCowboys.com.
Well,
we appreciate that, David.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But he's his own man. He doesn't have to report to Jerry Jones every day. You can.
Well, yes, he does, because Jerry Jones signs his paycheck.
I doubt that. I sincerely, I've never really gone into that, but I don't think they go around saying, "Oh, you have to say that the Dallas Cowboys are going to Super Bowl." I thought you're right. That was a very objective answer. What is the biggest problem? We think from a distance the two biggest problems of the Dallas Cowboys, just this Woody, that A, they got more bad boys than Boys Town and Father Flanagan had in Omaha, Nebraska.
Yes, a combustible roster, if you will.
And number two is that there have been defensive issues about the Cowboys over the last several years. What would you say are the two biggest issues for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I don't think either of those things is wrong. Obviously, I mean, you know, you bring in Greg Hardy and all the stuff that comes with that decision, and other guys on the, you know, you got your Rolando McClains. There's plenty of guys with off-field baggage. From my standpoint on the team every day, I don't really see that as an issue, because I don't think there's a better coach that's equipped to handle that than, I think if there's a strength that Jason Garrett has, it's his ability to galvanize a locker room, keep people focused on the mundane day-to-day. I really think that's his specialty, and I don't really worry about the personalities in that locker room when you consider guys like Jason Witten, Tony Romo, who are, you know, long-time, straight-laced veteran presences. So that doesn't really bother me. I agree with you about the defense. They've done a lot of things to improve it, Hardy obviously being number one. How it translates to production is a completely different issue, especially when you consider Hardy's going to serve a 4-game suspension. The thing for me is, and it's easily been the story of camp since we got here earlier this week, is you know, you lose the NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 500 combined touches and 2,400 all-purpose yards with DeMarco Murray not only leaving, but leaving and staying within your division. They feel good about the running backs they have here: Joseph Randle, Darren McFadden, Lance Dunbar. I don't necessarily share that faith that the front office and the coaching staff do. So, you know, I know that they have this very highly touted offensive line. They've got 3 All-Pros blocking for them. But, you know, I think it is a little bit the running back, too, and I'm very interested to see how they go about replacing that production. I think that how well they do that is going to say a lot about how they do this year. David,
who would you bet on getting the most number of touches, Randall or McFadden or Dunbar?
Well, McFadden's already hurt, isn't he, David?
Yeah, I think I mean, I would have said Randall before McFadden came up with a hamstring injury. He's on the preseason PUP with the hamstring problem. They don't expect it to be serious, but when you consider this is a guy that's only played 16-game season in his career, I just have a hard time having faith in that. Randall's been in the system for 2 years now. He was explosive in the very limited action that he got last year, so I think he's easily the preseason favorite to be the lead dog. But DeMarco Murray had 80% of the touches last year in the running back spot. I don't think it's realistic to think that happens twice. So even if Randall is the lead guy, I think you'll see a much heavier mix of the guys behind him.
Following up on that, there is a guy who's been a very good player in the league who is begging for the Dallas Cowboys to sign him.
Would that be Steven Jackson?
That's absolutely right. No more calls. We have a winner.
It caused a little bit of a stir here. Cowboys were actually out at their first practice when that went across the internet yesterday, and they've been pretty upfront about the whole thing, about the entire running back situation. They're not looking right now. They do have a list of guys. I mean, Stephen Jones has already been asked about Ray Rice, Chris Johnson. There's a handful of other guys out there, and they haven't shied away from the fact that somebody that's not on this team right now very well could be by the time it's all said and done.
You might as well add Ray Rice, David. I mean, you've added Lael Collins, and you've got Des Bryant, and you've got Greg Hardy, and you've got. You might as well throw Ray Rice in there. Yeah.
All of the
reprobates
that have run this team this year, it would be the cherry on top to go ahead and add that to the list of off-field storylines that are surrounding this team right now. But even if they do add a running back, based on the way the last few years of his career have gone, I'd be pretty surprised to see Dallas take a look at Steven Jackson over some other guys that might need work.
Yeah, you add Ray Rice. The support group situation would be great.
Yeah,
sitting around in a circle in those chairs.
We made that passing reference, and no pun intended, to Tony Romo, one of the best guys I've ever met in the NFL, one of the nicest guys. Tony Romo's getting up there in age. Phillip Rivers, we know about the guy that's here in Denver, but is Tony Romo still in a position to have his best all-time season, do you think?
Somebody actually asked him about that yesterday.
Oh.
And I mean, these anybody that's in the spotlight as much as Tony Romo is, he knows better than to give direct answers with good sound bites to questions like that. But I mean, he completed 69.9% of his passes last year. He led the league in quarterback rating. From a statistical standpoint, I don't know if you can play a lot better than he did from an efficiency-wise last. I mean, it was unbelievable how reliable and clutch he was down that 6-week stretch toward the playoffs. But I think it's fair to say, and I think he'd probably admit that he can have a better season just by virtue of the fact that he hasn't been out of the divisional round of the playoffs yet. And for a guy as talented as he is with the resume that he's putting together, I mean, obviously that's the ultimate goal. And with the Dallas Cowboys, the goal is always going to be the Super Bowl. So, maybe his stats even dip this year, but if they solve this running back question and the defense picks its game up, he's got Des Bryant locked up for the next 5 years. So if they can build off last season and take it further into the playoffs, maybe win a Super Bowl, I don't think anybody's going to care about the stats if he delivers on that.
Yeah, David, one more question about the defense. You got Sean Lee coming back at linebacker. You picked up Hardy. You've made some nice draft picks, we think. Didn't have a lot of sacks last year. I think only 28. You bring in the new defensive coordinator, Rod Marinelli. He likes to blitz. Is Dallas now going to turn into a blitzing team on defense?
I would be surprised to see that. I mean, that was kind of that's one of the calling cards of the guy who was here before Rob Ryan. And I think actually, what they've done, and we'll see how well it works, is Rod is really big on this idea of kind of sending pass rushers in waves and having, rather than 4 guys, I mean, he wants 7 to 8 to 9 guys who can rush the passer from the defensive line. Like we said, they signed Hardy. They drafted Randy Gregory in the 2nd round, who a lot of people considered a first-round talent. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, who they drafted 34th overall last year. And the coaches will talk your ear off about how excited they are about Tyrone Crawford, who's their young defensive tackle. And, at least here in the preseason, the hope is that they've added enough talent to this line that it can generate pressure without needing to send extra rushers and things like that. That obviously wasn't the case last year. It doomed them against Green Bay in the playoffs. But like I said earlier this week on another interview, is you can't say they haven't been trying. I mean, they're bringing in a guy, Greg Hardy, who obviously brings a lot of media attention to your team. They drafted a guy in Randy Gregory who had a lot of off-field storylines. So they're certainly doing everything in their power to try to increase that pass rush. And now's when we get to find out if it actually works. It should be exciting to see.
David, really appreciate it, and like your candor, and hopefully we can come back to you during the season. That all right?
Yeah, anytime y'all want. I really appreciate it.
What's your Twitter handle?
You can find me at HellmanDC, HELMANDC. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the other place you can find you is if these guys don't work out, we'll find you at the entrance to the jail in Dallas.
That's a solid point. I appreciate that. Thank you.
David Hellman of DallasCowboys.com. That segment sponsored by John Elway Cadillac, Colorado's #1 Cadillac dealer.